sitting in Ramana's presence every day, walking around the sacred mountain Arunachala, absorbing the silence, allowing the teaching to work not through words but through direct transmission. And during this time, he also received the teaching in its verbal form, the teaching that Ramana Maharshi considered the most direct, the most powerful, the most efficient path to the recognition of truth. He called it Vichara, self-inquiry, and it began with a single question: who am I? Now, it is important to understand what Ramana meant by this question. He was not asking for a biographical answer. He was not interested in your name or your history or your psychological profile or your spiritual resume. He was pointing to something far more immediate and far more radical than that. He was asking you to look directly, right now, in this moment, for the one who is asking the question, to turn the light of attention away from objects, away from thoughts, away from experiences, and to shine it inward, toward its own source, to ask, before all my thoughts, before all my experiences, before all my identities and roles and stories about myself, what is the bare sense of I? What is this most fundamental feeling of being present, of being aware, of simply being here? What is it? Where does it come from? What is its nature? Ramana said, when you look for the I, when you genuinely and sincerely try to locate this sense of being a self, you will find something extraordinary. You will find that you cannot find it, not because it is not there, but because it is not an object. It is not a thing that can be seen or touched or grasped or defined. Every time you try to look at the I, you find only awareness itself, not an aware person, not a conscious being, not a self that is aware, just awareness, pure, simple, boundless, without edges, without center, without beginning or end. This awareness, said Ramana, this is what you truly are, not the body. The body is an object appearing in awareness. It is seen by awareness. It cannot be what you are, not the mind. The mind is a collection of thoughts appearing in awareness. Each thought arises, stays for a moment, and then dissolves. But awareness remains, unchanged, unaffected, watching, not your personality. Your personality is a story, a collection of habits and preferences and memories and reactions that changes constantly throughout your life. But something in you has been present since the very first moment of your existence, something that was there when you were a child, something that was there when you were a young adult, something that is here now in this very moment, and that something has not aged, has not changed, has not been damaged by anything that has ever happened to you. That something is awareness itself, pure consciousness, pure presence, pure being. This is the self that Ramana spoke of, not the personal self, not the ego, not the story of me, but the impersonal aware presence. That is the very ground of your existence. That is what you most fundamentally are, beneath all your thoughts and all your feelings and all your experiences. Now, Robert Adams absorbed this teaching deeply, and he saw immediately why it was so powerful, because it did not ask you to become something you are not. It did not ask you to purify yourself. It did not ask you to accumulate spiritual merit or virtue. It did not ask you to follow a long and complicated path through many lifetimes. It simply asked you to look at what is already here, to recognize what you already are. And in that recognition, everything changes. Not because something new arrives, but because something false falls away. The idea that you are a limited person, a separate self, a vulnerable being in a dangerous world. This idea, when examined directly, when looked at honestly and sincerely, simply cannot be found. It is like a shadow. It appears very solid and very real as long as you do not look at it directly. But the moment you turn your full attention toward it, the moment you genuinely ask, where is this self that I take myself to be? You find only open, empty awareness, vast, quiet, at peace, already free. Robert Adams used to tell a story about a man who was searching desperately for his glasses. He was looking everywhere, on the table, under the bed, in every drawer, getting more and more frantic. And a friend came in and said, "What are you looking for?" And the man said, my glasses, I cannot find them anywhere." And the friend said, "They are on your face. This is exactly what self-inquiry is like. You are searching desperately for peace, for freedom, for your true self, looking everywhere outside yourself, in books and teachings and experiences, in meditation states and spiritual highs, in the words of teachers and the practices of traditions. And all along, the peace you are looking for is what you are. The awareness you are searching for is the very awareness that is doing the searching. The self you are trying to find is the one who is looking. You are wearing your glasses. You have always been wearing them. You just did not know it, because no one told you to look here. No one pointed you toward your own most fundamental nature. And this is what Ramana Maharshi did. This is what he spent his entire life doing. Not accumulating followers, not building a spiritual empire, not writing complicated books or creating elaborate systems. He simply sat in silence, pointing every seeker who came to him back toward their own self, back toward the awareness that was already present, already free, already at peace, already everything they had ever been looking for. Now there is something very important to understand about self-inquiry. It is not a technique in the ordinary sense of the word. It is not something you do for 20 minutes in the morning and then put away and forget about for the rest of the day. It is a way of being, a way of holding attention, a way of orienting the entire life toward the recognition of truth. Ramana said, the investigation of the self should be continuous, not just in formal meditation, but throughout the day, in every moment, in every activity. The question should be quietly present in the background. Who is doing this? Who is thinking this? Who is aware of this? Not as a verbal question repeated mechanically, but as a living orientation of attention, a constant gentle turning inward, a persistent and loving inquiry into the nature of the one who is present in all experiences. And as this inquiry deepens, as it becomes more natural and more continuous, something begins to shift. The identification with the personal self, the sense of being a separate individual living inside a body, looking out at a world that is other. This identification begins to loosen, not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, like ice slowly melting in warm water. The sense of being a separate self begins to soften, and what is revealed as this softening happens is not emptiness, not the cold emptiness of nihilism or meaninglessness, but the warm, alive, luminous presence of pure awareness itself, your own nature, recognized at last. Robert Adams spent years deepening in this recognition, years sitting with Ramana, years walking around Arunachala, years allowing the teaching to penetrate deeper and deeper into every layer of his being. And gradually, the peace that he had first tasted as a child, the peace that he had glimpsed in Ramana's presence on that first day, became not just an experience that came and went, but his permanent natural state, the ground from which all experience arose, the still center around which all of life moved. He used to say, I am not peaceful because nothing bad is happening to me. I am peaceful because I have recognized what I am, and what I am cannot be disturbed by anything that happens in the world of appearances, because what I am is prior to the world of appearances. What I am is the awareness in which all appearances arise, the screen on which the movie of life is projected. Not the movie, not the characters in the movie, not the story, but the screen itself, silent, unchanging, unaffected, always already present, always already free. This is the self. This is what Ramana pointed to. This is what Robert Adams lived. This is what they both offered to every sincere seeker who came to them with an open heart and a genuine